in the country, with a diabetic dying every 6 seconds. It's also worth a pretty penny. Diabetes generates billions of dollars for the powerful pharma giants. Several big pharma companies have been caught red-handed bribing doctors to push their diabetes pills on people who don't need them. Big pharma butters them up and offers them lucrative deals to promote diabetes drugs at events. What a racket they'd set up. I imagine the greedy CEOs laughing as they cashed in their multi-million-dollar bonus checks. Something else I found out was that doctors are so busy with diabetics that they quickly prescribe a treatment and move you on. Instead, they should be telling you about the deadly risk diabetes type 2 poses to your life. For example, one study showed that if you've got diabetes, your risk of heart attack is up to 4 times higher than the average person. Another found that diabetics are twice as likely to have a stroke. And during a stroke, your clogged blood vessels slow blood flow to the brain. If you're a diabetic, a stroke is like sitting in the electric chair. I researched hard. I called universities to question them. I found medical journals dating 10 years back. I trawled through hundreds of diabetes studies on the internet. But the advice I kept seeing was no different to what my doctor always told me. Take your meds. Avoid too much sugar. It was this so-called advice that almost caused me brain damage from a diabetic coma and took me to the brink of leg amputation. I took myself to the point of exhaustion, searching late into the night on medical research websites and waking up early day after day. My wife had to stop me because the stress was getting too much. I decided to take a break. My son Julian was due to visit with his fiancée from Japan, and I wanted to help him plan the wedding to make it the best ever. After all, it could be the last family event of my life. The next morning, as I had coffee with my son Julian and his fiancée Noriko over breakfast, I told them about my frustrations with my diabetes research. Maybe Noriko can help, Julian said. She majored in health science in Japan. In Japan, they target the root cause of health problems. Here in the U.S. and other Western countries, we manage the symptoms with medication. And that's why in Japan they have far lower levels of diabetes type 2, heart disease, obesity, and cancer, and why they live much longer than us on average. Then Noriko told me about a maverick American doctor who was based in Japan. His name was Dr. James Freeman, and he was known in her country for his pioneering work in diabetes. Freeman was using research from the University of Utah to develop a powerful new nutritional method to reverse diabetes type 2 for his Japanese patients. She was surprised I didn't know about it. This diabetes reversing method involved no medication, no crash diets, and no exercise. It activates a powerful mechanism which targets the root cause of the disease. Diabetics of all ages were following it from home and reversing their diabetes type 2 in weeks. And what's more, she had his contact details. Now, you may think I'd have bitten her arm off to get in touch with this guy, but I was skeptical. After all, which doctor had ever helped me fix my blood sugar? I was done with doctors by this point. But I had nothing to lose, so I emailed Dr. Freeman's office and left my details. Then 4 days later, I got woken up with a call from his assistant in Japan. "I'll make this quick," she said. "Dr. Freeman will be in Chicago next week. If you'd like to see him, he can spare some time for you." She made an appointment for Friday afternoon, and that day I drove the 4 hours to Chicago, not knowing what to expect. Dr. Freeman was a bright guy, very clear and down to earth. I quickly learned he'd lived and worked in a few different countries. He had a number of awards for his breakthrough diabetes research in Japan, Dubai, and Singapore. And his story was interesting. His parents had both developed type 2 diabetes when he was in medical school. He'd seen how diabetes had ruined their lives. The side effects of the medication, the weight gain, the loss of energy, not to mention the drain on their finances. It was painful for him to watch. He'd made it his life's mission to find a way to reverse diabetes type 2 for good, and without needing meds that damage your kidneys and cost the earth. "Let's be clear about one thing, George," he told me. "The true cause of diabetes type 2 is not eating too much carbs or sugar. It's something entirely different. In fact, Americans have decreased their consumption of both sugar and carbs over the last 10 to 15 years, yet diabetes type 2 rates are shooting up faster than ever before. People are trying desperately hard to fix their blood sugar, but they're doing it all wrong. Here's why. Scientists at the University of Utah recently discovered a tiny lipid molecule, a foreign compound called a ceramide, which all diabetics have very high levels of. They discovered that this toxic molecule is the real cause of diabetes type 2. not carbs, and not sugar. These tiny compounds force fat cells to spill into the bloodstream and clog up your vital organs, especially the pancreas, the liver, and the heart. You probably already know that your pancreas is the organ that produces insulin, but when it's clogged up with toxic fat, it can't do its job and secrete insulin. And insulin is what tells your cells to absorb sugar and energy from the foods you eat. Without insulin, sugar stays in your bloodstream and your blood sugar creeps up and up, eventually leading to diabetes type 2. This fat streams around the body, sticking to the liver and heart, and even clogging the arteries as well, which explains why diabetics are at a high risk of heart attack and often have fatty livers. Now the problem is that some of us can't flush out foreign compounds like ceramides on our own. Sure, losing some weight can help, but it's not enough for most people. No matter how hard you try to fix your blood sugar, even if you exercise daily and eat next to no sugar and carbs, it's near impossible to reverse diabetes type 2 unless you fix this one thing. He continued, "It's like trying to unblock your clogged sink when someone is pouring cooking fat down it every night. You'll try your best, but the fat keeps pouring down the pipes every night, blocking it up again. It's the same as when you try to fix blood sugar. If the fat keeps streaming into your blood and clogging up your pancreas, it'll never work. It's not your fault. The good news is we now know how to flush out the root cause of the fat, which is this ceramide compound. When you do that, you'll stop fat from entering your bloodstream and clogging your pancreas. You only need to add a powerful blend of phytonutrients to your diet that target and destroy the cause of this fat and melt it away. These phytonutrients are powerful plant compounds that help neutralize foreign agents in the blood, repair DNA damage from exposure to toxins, and fight against inflammation. You'll find them in certain fruits and vegetables. The most powerful of these plant compounds are called flavonoids, lignans, and profenylphenols. These may sound intimidating, but really, they're simple medicinal plant chemicals you'll find in foods at grocery stores. You'll find profenylphenols in foods like in chives, grapes, dark chocolate, and cinnamon. You'll get lignans from eating squash and carrots. And flavonoids you'll find in celery, parsley, and romaine lettuce. But the key is not to get these foods and just eat them in any order. You'll need to combine them in specific amounts and take them at certain times of the day for them to work. When you do that, you'll create a powerful catalytic effect and increase their potency. This is what kickstarts the powerful chain reaction to reversing your diabetes type 2. When you add these nutrients to your diet in these specific combinations, it'll be like you finally get rid of the guy who's pouring fat down your sink every night and blocking it up. You unclog your body, clean it out, and it starts working perfectly well again, especially your pancreas. This sounded good to me, but I was a little skeptical. How does it actually work? I asked him. Well, scientists at the University of East Anglia in England first discovered that phytonutrients are powerful antioxidants that first target and flush out the dangerous ceramide compound that causes the fat to clog your organs in the first place, he told me. Then they melt the nasty white fat deposits by attacking and dissolving the deadly fat cells that sit around your pancreas and belly. When you add other phytonutrients, such as profenylphenols and lignans, it creates a potent catalytic effect that melts away every last cluster of toxic white fat clogging your pancreas, liver, and heart that's been causing diabetes, and without exercise. You'll burn away pounds of belly fat, lower blood pressure, and feel much more energetic. Then he showed me the results of his clinical trials, which were mind-blowing. For over 9 out of 10 diabetics, the toxic fat around their organs melted completely, firing up the pancreas and turning the liver into a fat-burning machine. It was as though they'd fixed their clogged, broken pancreas and liver with a pressure wash, leaving them clean, shiny, and in perfect working order. And with a fully functioning pancreas, they reversed their diabetes type 2 in a few weeks. The participants were men and women from all walks of life. There were 24-year-olds right up to 87-year-olds, newly diagnosed diabetics, people who'd suffered for 20 years with the disease, and a few cases of advanced prediabetes. His system was also melting away an average 22 pounds of excess body fat in the first 6 weeks. Most people reaching the 3-month mark had improved every single one of their health markers. They lowered their blood pressure to healthy levels, improved cardiovascular health, boosted energy levels, and even enhanced brain and memory function. How about the small number of people who didn't fully reverse their diabetes type 2? The treatment lowered their fasting blood sugar levels to around 125. meaning their diabetes was finally under control and low risk. This alone added at least 10 years to their lives. Why don't we know about this diabetes breakthrough in the US and Canada? I asked him. You can find the studies if you look, George, but it's not in the media because it's been suppressed by powerful pharma lobbies who are concerned they'd lose billions if this information is made public, he replied. Then he told me he'd worked for a major pharma company to develop this treatment a few years ago, but to his shock, the research was suddenly shut down without warning. See, the problem was that his phytonutrient combination was so powerful that it would be capable of reversing diabetes in tens of millions of people over the next 2 years. It would mean the pharma company funding the study would lose hundreds of millions of dollars they pocket from pushing their daily diabetes treatments worldwide. Of course, pharma companies don't want people to reverse diabetes type 2, as it's bad for business. That's when Freeman understood how it worked. If a treatment was too good or if results were permanent, they're not interested, and they pull the plug on the research right away. They're only motivated by profit. Their drugs are designed to keep people dependent on them for life, managing the symptoms without ever fixing the disease. At the time, Freeman was frustrated because he had the results to prove he could reverse diabetes type 2. Both of his aging parents had reversed their long-term diabetes type 2 by following his simple protocol. He couldn't keep these results to himself, so he'd taken it to other countries like Japan and Singapore instead. And because he knew his system had to be super simple for people to follow, he developed an easy-to-follow 3-step approach that caused participants to become practically immune to diabetes type 2. Freeman's team made their system super simple and quick by giving people simple daily juice recipes with the exact quantities of vegetables, fruits, and herbs containing the phytonutrients they needed to ignite the diabetes-reversing mechanism inside them. By drinking these juices for breakfast or lunch, they started reversing their diabetes type 2 on the very first day. The potent phytonutrients in their juices protected them from dangerous ceramides and dissolved the dangerous white fat deposits, and keeps blood sugar constantly under control even when people have a cheat day. The results were beyond their wildest expectation. Not only did 9 out of 10 of the participants fully reverse their diabetes, but they kept it away for good, even 5 years on. I asked him if the participants had to lower their intake of carbs. No, replied Freeman. Most people increase their carb intake. The 3 healthiest communities in the world consume a diet with plenty of carbs and have no diabetes. Carbs aren't the real culprit. Certain types of modified oils, fake chemicals, and even one dangerous vegetable most people eat are what you need to avoid. Which vegetable is bad for diabetes? I asked him, shaken by this revelation. Kale, he replied. Then he hit me with results of a shocking new report. He said that in the 2019 USDA test on kale, more than 92% of kale samples had 2 or more pesticide residues detected. The most frequently detected pesticide is DCPA, and it's classified by the Environmental Protection Agency since 1995 as a possible human carcinogen, and prohibited for use in Europe since 2009. It causes inflammation and oxidative damage. I was stunned. I'd been eating kale almost every day for the past 8 months, believing it to be super healthy. And all this time, kale was destroying my body from the inside. And it made me determined to try a solution out. He printed out some sheets of paper and scribbled on them for a few minutes, then handed me a binder. In that binder was the exact diabetes reversing method that had been perfected for his patients. Try this for 3 weeks, he said. Then check your blood sugar levels. I reminded Professor Freeman that I couldn't exercise due to my damaged kneecap. There's not a single workout in my program, he replied. And in fact, I don't recommend that you exercise. I was a little confused, as I expected that I'd need to do daily exercise and follow a crash diet. I didn't know I could reverse diabetes with no more than a binder and some handwritten notes on it. But I trusted Professor Freeman, and I felt he was on my side. He wasn't trying to push expensive meds with nasty side effects on me like my own doctor had. So I decided to give it a try. I thanked him for his time and drove home. I started the program the very next day and was struck by how simple and easy to follow it was. I could find the ingredients at a couple of local grocery stores. The delicious diabetes-destroying